Just try and find a seat if you can. Thank everybody for moving their chairs, trying to make the atmosphere a little more conducive to learning. Always interesting to talk about sleep right after lunch. So if you do happen to doze off in the middle of the presentation, you get extra credit. Okay, that's totally fine. A couple of things, conflict of interest statement. Perform Better is my sponsor, so thank you, Perform Better. They're obviously paying for me to be here, so I have to disclose that. And I've also given this presentation for the NHL, National Hockey League, athletic trainers, strength coaches, and things like that. So those things have been disclosed. A little bit about me. I've been doing this in the high-performance space for about 20 years. I started as a performance specialist at IMG Academies. I was a strength coach, right? And then I helped start a small little company called EXOS, which used to be called Athletes Performance. So I helped start that. And yes, like every other startup, we did start out of a garage, right? And then I worked as director of human performance for one of our Olympic teams, and I was 7 years at Stanford University as director of sports performance for their entire athletic department. Now, I'm a high-performance strategist, so I solve human performance problems. I still work with sports teams, I still work with athletes, but now I spend a lot of my time with the military population working to solve some human performance problems, Department of Defense, command capabilities, et cetera, et cetera. So I bounce all around to solve problems. I'm a hired gun, true to my Italian last name, I guess, okay? So that's a little bit about me. Disclaimer about today's talk. This is going to be about the basics of sleep. Okay, we're not going to be talking about sleep-related illnesses. It's just basic general knowledge as it pertains to sleep. Okay, so it's not like, hey, I have a friend who has this, right? I'm not a physician. I'm not a real doctor. I'm a PhD. I'm a fake one. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I'm a big fan of reading. This is a book I read a number of years ago called The One Thing. And the whole premise of this book was, what is the one thing such by doing it can make everything either easier or unnecessary? So there's one thing you can do to make everything else either easier or unnecessary. What might that be? And the answer is you have to coach sleep. You have to do it. It's that important. Now, I understand there is the world of reality and the tactical world and the world of first responders and things of that nature. But the point is you're managing the intersection between science and application. Okay? There's a delicate balance between what is science and what is real world. But when the world is predictable and not in a dynamic, ever-changing environment, let's apply the science and get people where they need to be so that they can handle the times of erratic changes much, much better. And that's what it's all about. And those are some of the things we're going to talk about today. Now, how I got involved in the sleep, it started in 2007 with a phone call. That was my first year at Stanford. And I reached out to a gentleman by the name of Dr. William Dement. Anybody ever heard of REM sleep? He discovered it. Okay, he's like 87 years old, the nicest guy you ever met. He discovered REM when he was like a GA, like a grad student, right? He was 22 years old, and his paper on REM sleep got rejected 7 times before it was accepted, right? Everybody's like, really? It's like Michael Jordan getting cut from his 10th grade basketball team, same type of thing. Well, Bill Dement has this nice little quote, dreaming permits each and every one of us to be quietly and safely insane every night of our lives, okay? So I met with him and somebody else called Sherry Ma, who was a student of his at the time, and then we started to do some collaborative research endeavors. And we did the Stanford basketball study and looked at that and how sleep can actually impact performance if we pay back sleep debt. So it really turned into this fantastic relationship of saying, how can you help us in the performance world make things better? And we actually had our latest publication was in June of 2018. Not a surprise, poor sleep quality and insufficient sleep of a collegiate student-athlete population. Like groundbreaking that college students are underslept, right? But again, if it's not published, people don't believe it, right? Interesting. This is a surgical sponge. The reason why this is in the presentation is 13 of these are left in humans every day. Now, just so we're all on the same page, you're not supposed to leave these in people, okay? You're supposed to remove them. But surgeons who are trained and have been trained for years to not leave these in people still leave them in people. And why do they do this? Well, it all starts with fatigue. So what's the whole function of sleep? Well, the most important role is to facilitate an optimal level of waking function. How can we perform optimally when we are awake? That's all sleep should do. Because when we are fatigued because of lack of sleep, that's when bad things happen. Historically speaking, most of the bad crap that's gone down on this planet happened because of fatigue and poor sleep, okay? 3 Mile Island, the largest nuclear disaster on American soil. Somebody failed to recognize the warning light at 4 in the morning. The big light that says meltdown, they were trained to recognize the big light that said meltdown. They failed to recognize it, right? And that's a problem. Chernobyl, same thing, okay? The Challenger explosion. If you run the statistics on the Challenger explosion and the likelihood of the O-ring failing at that temperature at launch, it's a 96% probability that that was going to happen. Then how did it happen? You had engineers, you had scientists who had been up for 2 weeks at a time on very little sleep, trying to get this thing to go and making decisions that cost people's lives. Now, we don't realize it. We're clouded. We think we're functioning fine, but we don't realize how much sleep is impairing us. The Exxon Valdez decimated the ecosystem in the Pacific Northwest. The guy fell asleep at the wheel. Ruined it. And more recently, in 2017, back-to-back, the U.S. Navy, the USS Fitzgerald, and the John McCain, some of the most technologically advanced pieces of combat equipment, and some things, another boat just kind of snuck up on you, right? It makes you wonder. Now, there's other things that contributed to it, such as like the displays that they were using and those types of things, but fatigue definitely played into a factor, so much that the Secretary of the Navy launched a comprehensive fatigue and endurance management policy to try and change some of these things. How can we take sleep off the table to know that it was not causing people's deaths unnecessarily, okay? So this ties into some of the work that I did with Draper and some of the research at Natick that we did. And what we looked at was a model for holistic human performance. And we came up with 105 elements with multiple interactions. Now, I don't expect you to see what all of these things are, but at the end of the day, there were 4 pillars of human performance. There was the physical, the cognitive, the social, and emotional. And to be optimized, to truly optimize human performance, you must be optimized in all 4 of those domains, okay? And all these domains are connected. And they all affect one another. How we feel physically impacts how we feel cognitively, socially, and emotionally. How we think about ourselves cognitively can impact how we feel physically and socially and emotionally. And what's interesting, one thing, there are a few first-order connections that influenced all 4 of these. And one of them, sleep. Sleep influences how we perform physically. It influences how we perform cognitively, how we feel emotionally, and how we respond socially. All of these things are impacted by sleep, okay? Now, here are the stages of healthy sleep. I'm not going to get any further in depth than that, okay? All you need to know is that in the later half of the night is when most of your REM cycles occur. On the front half of the night is when the least amount occur. So if you truncate your sleep to about 6 hours every night or 5 hours every night, you can see what you're missing. That's all this is to illustrate, okay? But sleep matters. It can impact reaction time. It can impact recovery, overall performance, and career longevity, or how long you choose to continue doing what you want to do. And that's what it's all about. How do we stack the odds in your favor of doing what you do as long as you want to? I want you to be able to retire on your own terms, not on somebody else's. And that's all we're trying to do. Okay? So, there's a high-performance order of operations. Everybody talks about skill and performance and movement, but I contend that there are 2 other ones, nutrition and sleep. And I think sleep comes before nutrition. People will say, Brandon, you're a sleep guy. I'm like, I'm not a sleep guy. I have a PhD in nutrition. So technically, you would think I'd be more biased toward nutrition. We'll talk about why I think nutrition should come after sleep, okay? So, if you don't get enough sleep, here's what happens. And I think we all experience this. Some of us might be experiencing this now. 1, increased risk of injury. Makes sense. Reduced pain threshold. In other words, when you are sleep deprived, it hurts more. Okay? The aches and pains, the bumps and bruises, those things bother you more. Greater susceptibility to sickness, reduced psychological and physical performance, increased anxiety, irritability. When my daughter was born, I remember I knocked over the hot sauce one morning, and I was pissed, right? I was irritated. Why? I was sleep deprived, but I got angry because I knocked over the Cholula, right? It was just sleep deprivation that was doing it. Impaired situational awareness, increased body fat percentage. You revert back to old habits, and you have poor judgment of distance, speed, and time. Let me say that again. Poor judgment of distance, speed, and time. Everybody in this room, that's critical, okay? Actually, anybody in general. I took an Uber here, and believe me, I'm sitting and I'm watching the road. I don't know what job that person has during the day besides Uber, and now they're in the car driving, maybe impaired a little bit because they're a little bit fatigued. That's a problem, right? Now, if we get enough, good stuff happens. Motivation improves. Recovery improves. Our muscle strength improves. We regulate stress better. We store energy and muscle better, better situational awareness, better reaction time, better memory consolidation. All good things. Because we've done the research on this that looks at starting with paying back our sleep debt. We've done sleep deprivation studies ad nauseum, right? We've taken people, we've put them on a track, you drive the car on the track, right? Then we put you to bed, we wake you up after an hour, we put you back on the track. Next thing you know, you're running over the cones, you're running into cardboard cutouts of families and things like that, right? We know the effects of sleep deprivation. But if we pay it back, what happens? And this is the cool stuff, right? So what is sleep debt? Let me talk about that first. Sleep debt simplified. If you need 8 hours of sleep and you got 7 last night, you owe me 9 tonight. You have to pay back that hour. Now, right now, some of you people in the room are like, I'm never paying back my sleep debt. Must have like 1 million hours, right? Good news, everybody. There is a hypothetical ceiling of sleep debt, and it's right around 50 hours. Seems manageable, right? Now, it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in a weekend or a day off, right? It takes time to pay back this sleep debt. But if you can do that, we start to see the benefits of performance on that back end. How do you know if you have sleep debt? Actually, right about now is when you can tell. So if you find yourself after lunch dozing off in this talk, right? Clearly not because I'm not entertaining, right? But if you find yourself grabbing for caffeine, Copenhagen, or some other type of stimulant, that means you have some sleep debt. So right after lunch, actually, you have this urge to sleep. It's right here, this block of red, okay? Everybody has that urge to sleep. The difference is, do I feel that urge or do I not feel that urge? It's there. It's just how perceivable is that urge. The greater the amount of sleep debt you have, the greater the urge to nod off and fall asleep. Okay? The lower amounts of sleep debt you have, you may not even feel that urge at all. So that's one way of telling if you have sleep debt, if you're tired right after this lunch. It has nothing to do with what you ate, by the way. We've done the research. We've looked at 48 different dietary combinations and its effect on making people feel drowsy after lunch. The one factor that drives this, sleep debt, okay? So, again, you can pay it back. It just takes time and you have to be patient, okay? It's chipping away little by little. But when we did this, we started looking at it with swimmers when we first looked at paying back sleep debt. So what we had them get 10 plus hours a night for 5 weeks, okay? Wouldn't that be nice, right? And then we said, well, let's look at their performance and see how they did. 8% faster in the water, 20% better reaction time, 20% better reaction time off the blocks in swimmers. You watch the Olympics, right? Like people go from first to like fifth with just like a gnat's time, right? By that much. You miss the wall, and there's 4 years of training down the tubes, right? So think about it, 20% huge. Turn time efficiency improved in kick strokes. What does that translate to? Better expression of strength and power. So these individuals can express their strength and power and have better reaction time. Let's talk about what that 20% reaction time is. Right around 400 milliseconds or 0.4 seconds. Go ahead and blink your eyes. That was about 300 milliseconds, so that'll give you an idea what that is. That is huge. If we're talking first responders, if we're talking about the tactical population, it's all about how can I make the best decision and the correct decision in the shortest period of time. That's what it comes down to. So it's not just physical, but remember it's also cognitive as well, okay? Then we said, well, what if it was just with swimmers? What if it was just aquatic athletes? Let's see about basketball players. So we had them get 10 plus hours a night for 5 weeks, and sure enough, they got better at free throw shooting and better at three-point shooting. They also got faster, so they were able to cover more ground. The craziest part of this study, everybody liked being at practice. I'm going to say that again. Everybody liked being at practice. I have never been around a team that everyone enjoyed being there. And why do they enjoy being there? They're performing better. The coaches were enjoying themselves because now they're remembering what they were supposed to be doing, right? The players remember what the coaches were telling them, so they're actually executing the skills that the coaches have been trying to coach them up on for months, right? They're faster, they're performing better, they're not getting as fatigued, they're not as irritable, they're not as anxious. They're on the gravy train with biscuit wheels, folks. This is like good stuff, and everybody was excited to be there. We started looking at baseball players, okay? And this was a study done with Chris Winter. He looked at 80 Major League Baseball players after 3 years. And what he did was he split them into 3 groups. So group one's, first group, you guys, this first third of the room, normal sleep traits. No problems falling asleep, no problems waking up. Maybe you got up one time to go make pee in the middle of the night, but that's about it, right? Then you had the poor sleep traits, this third of the room, right? Erratic sleep times, erratic wake times, erratic quantity, quality, those types of things. And then you had the last part of the room, right? The last third. And you guys have severe sleep issues. So when I mean severe sleep issues, it might be insomnia. It could be sleep apnea. And sleep apnea, by the way, is not reserved for the 450-pound NFL lineman. You could be 5'9", 172 pounds, and have sleep apnea. You do not have to be overweight. So it's something that can affect anyone in this room. People in this room might be affected by it. So what they did, they went back 3 years later and said, how many of these individuals were still playing? So when I talk about stacking the odds in your favor and performing on your own terms, you guys with normal sleep traits, 72% of you were still playing 3 years later. That's pretty good odds. Those with poor sleep, 39% of you guys. And those with severe sleep issues, 14%. Now, the 14%, you're my outliers. You are the people that could perform at a high level on crappy sleep and crappy nutrition. They're out there. Some might be in this room. But that can't be everybody. Not everybody in the firehouse, not everybody on the force, not everybody in the barracks. That can't be everyone. You can have one outlier, maybe 2, but not everybody, okay? 30 Major League Baseball teams tracked 2005 to 2011. Their performance in the strike zone got worse as the season went on. Now, they've been playing baseball probably since they were 4 years old. And now they're Major League Baseball players, but their performance in the strike zone's getting worse. Remember, ties in the reaction time, making decisions, cognitive awareness, situational awareness, memory. It didn't matter how many extra cuts they took. It didn't matter how much video they watched. It didn't matter how much additional training that they went through. Their performance still got worse. We don't know the answer, but we think it has a lot to do with fatigue. Okay? Injuries are related to sleeping less than 6 hours. So if somebody gets less than 6 hours of sleep before a competition compared to somebody who gets 8, 1.7 times likely to get hurt. It's pretty significant. Remember, we revert back to old habits, compensation patterns, poor judgment of distance, speed, and time. All of these things come into play. This is not stacking the odds in your favor, and it doesn't mean you're going to get hurt, but like I said, it's not stacking the odds to help you either. Sleep and testosterone are linked. This is enormous. 24-year-old men who got less than 5 hours of sleep at night saw a decrease in testosterone by 15%. Well, what does a 15% decrease in testosterone mean? What it means is that these 24-year-old guys now have the testosterone of 40-year-old men after sleeping less than 5 hours for 1 week. 5 hours a night for 1 week. So if we're trying to improve strength, if we're trying to improve power, if we're trying to improve resiliency, if I'm trying to rehab and come back from an injury, if I'm trying to recover, testosterone drives recovery, right? I'm setting myself up for not ideal performance if I'm getting suboptimal sleep. Brain health. Sleep affects your brain. I think we all know this, okay? When you sleep at night, the brain actually bathes itself in cerebral spinal fluid. It does its housekeeping. They used to think the brain wasn't active at all. Now we learn more, right? So at night, it bathes itself with that cerebral spinal fluid. And what that cerebral spinal fluid does is it pulls out all of those debris, beta amyloid plaques, and other things that can relate to some brain-related disease later on down the road. Now, getting 8 hours, 9 hours a night doesn't guarantee you're going to be Alzheimer's free, right? But what it does, it stacks the odds in your favor, okay? And just like anything else, if you don't give your brain enough time to clean, it's not going to do a good job. You hire a housekeeper to clean your place, you only give her 10 minutes. How good a job is she really going to do? Right? She's just going to do a crappy job all over, just do one spot really well. And the same thing goes for your brain. If you do not give your brain enough time to do its housekeeping, you cannot expect it to clean out the debris. So there are some consequences that play into this with brain health. When we look at the U.S. Military Academy and grade point averages improved 11% when cadets were given the opportunity to sleep from 6 hours to 8 hours. Granted, it's an opportunity. Not everybody takes that opportunity. Okay? But when they were, all of a sudden you saw a huge jump in GPA. And I talked about Bill Dement earlier, considered the father of sleep science, okay, sleep medicine. Our earliest class when I was at Stanford started at 9 a.m. We didn't have any classes that started before that because he was such an influential person on that campus and people understood the value of a good night's rest. Sure, you can say, well, they're just going to stay up an hour later. Well, so what? They might, but let's give them the opportunity to get a better night's rest. Let's just not take it off the table. Let's leave it up to them. And that's one thing that we know from a cognitive standpoint. When we sleep, and we talk about the brain health and the brain interaction, the reason why we become more irritable and anxious is our prefrontal cortex goes to sleep when we become sleep deprived, okay? And what happens is we rely upon the emotional portion of our brain to make decisions, okay? So pretty much what happens if we're sleep deprived, we become teenagers, right? This is the part that's responsible, the prefrontal cortex, the part that's responsible for good judgment. That goes to bed, right? Remember, that doesn't develop until you're like 22, 25 years old anyway, okay? So again, we're like back to teenagers. So we make all of our decisions based off of emotion. Do we want people trying to make the best decisions in the shortest period of time, making the decisions and driving decisions based off of emotion? Might work out, but it doesn't stack the odds in our favor. So again, different parts of our brain are more active when we are sleeping versus awake. Now, I talked about this. There's a greater susceptibility to sickness. So what happened here, if you guys came into this room and what you didn't know is I sprayed the cold virus in here before you guys came in, the likelihood of you getting sick 3 days from now after the incubation period would be based upon how much sleep you got last night, okay? Now, I didn't do that, all right? But if I had, and you got greater than 7 hours of sleep, you're only 17% likely to get that cold. Pretty good. The odds are in your favor. Doesn't mean you're not going to get sick, but they're on your side, right? If you get less than 5 hours, right, 45% likely to get that cold. That's almost 50%. The house will win that one, okay? Something to keep in mind. Healthy is a good thing. Now, there is a lot of sleep mythology out there. And of course, in the age of social media and influencers, there are good influencers and bad influencers. There's a lot of crap out there. So I'm going to go through and cut some of this right now as we move through here. Let me check my time here. 1, you can get too much sleep. Myth. There's no such thing as getting too much sleep. Now, I had a little debate about this with a coach one time. He said, man, I got too much sleep last night. I said, well, coach, actually, you just can't really get too much sleep. You don't know me. He said, you don't know me, okay? And then he began to argue with me like, you can't argue with me. I got too much sleep. You don't know who I am. I'm different from everybody. I'm like, okay, so you must go to a physician that specializes in you, right? They went to med school and studied you, right? Because you're so unique that there's just one physician just waiting for you to call in case you need something. And he went, shut up, and he walked off, right? And then he came back and apologized. He goes, sorry, man, I just got a little worked up. I'm like, it's okay. You got a lot of things on your mind. But at the end of the day, you can't get too much sleep. The reason why people believe they get too much sleep is because they're kind of groggy throughout the day, right? They've thrown off their circadian rhythm. So they're kind of a little bit foggy and groggy throughout the day. And we equate that to getting too much sleep. That's not a bad thing. We're actually paying back some sleep debt. And that's good, okay? We want to do that. Number 2, naps are bad. Naps are not bad, okay? The only time I would not recommend a nap is if it interferes with your ability to get a good night's rest, okay? So I had a college roommate, okay, and he decided he was going to take a nap at 9:30 at night. True story. Next thing you know, he wakes up at like 11:30. He goes, man, I'm tired. I needed that. I'm like, okay. I said, aren't you going to have trouble going to sleep? He goes, nah, I'll be fine. I go to bed. I wake up in the morning to go to the weight room at like 6 in the morning, and he's watching TV. I'm like, couldn't sleep? He goes, no, I couldn't. Weird, right? I'm like, maybe not, right? So he was actually flipped his day schedule for like 3 weeks as a result. Didn't go to class, right? Slept all day. Craziest thing. So in a situation like that, if it's going to interfere with your ability to sleep at night, I don't recommend a nap. Other than that, take them. Now, the next question people ask is, well, how long of a nap is okay, right? So there is textbook nap, which is, people say 20 minutes, right? Which gives you that nice, refreshing type of bounce back feeling that you need. If you need 2 hours, take 2 hours. If you need 1 hour, get an hour. Whatever you can take, get. Okay, we are an underslept population. Now, there is this cool thing called a nappuccino. Some of you may have heard of it, right? So caffeine takes, you're laughing, so you've heard of it, yeah. So caffeine takes about 15 minutes to kick in, right? So if you take some caffeine, ingest some caffeine, you fall asleep, and then you wake up 20 minutes later, you get the benefits of the nap, and then all of a sudden the caffeine is kicked in well, so you kind of skip over that sleep inertia. What sleep inertia is, typically when you sleep longer than like 30, 45 minutes, you get that grogginess, that fogginess for about 15 minutes. It can last even up to an hour and a half in some people. That's called sleep inertia, and that having that nappuccino or that caffeine can actually help kind of kick that a little bit to the side. So short answer, naps are not bad, they're fine. Myth number 3, 8 hours of sleep is ideal. That's not true. Kind of made up. Why is it made up? Because most people, the average person, needs 8. We go 1 standard deviation to the left and to the right, that's an hour. So 69 point whatever % of the population need between 7 and 9. Everybody's different. You might need 7. You might need 7.5. You might need 8. You might need 8.5. You might need 9, and so on and so on and so on. Everybody's going to be different. So if you don't get 8 hours, don't hit the panic button. Oh my gosh, you didn't get 8 hours, right? Everybody's going to be different. If you can consistently get 7 hours a night and you're not drowsy after lunch, you know you're fine. So you don't have to worry about it. But if you get 7 hours sleep and you find yourself drowsy after lunch, you know 7 is certainly not your number. You need more than that. Okay, drowsiness is red alert. And for the people that are out there that say, I heard somebody only sleeps 3 hours a night, right? Dr. Dement spent the earliest part of his career traveling around the globe finding these people who reported that they only got like 3 hours of sleep a night. And he goes, Brandon, it was the biggest waste of time and money in my life. People are terrible at telling you how much time they slept, right? And they think they got 3 hours. They get far more than that. So it's absolutely crazy. So anyway, not saying people can function on 6, but people also need to function on 9. Everybody's going to be different. Usually the question that people ask me is like, how do you know? How do you tell? Can you tell, right? There's like no cool scientific way. There's no wearable. There's no blood test that you can do to see how much sleep you need. Like 23andMe is not going to tell you how much sleep you need, right? Okay. The only way of really knowing, this is the only way, you have to pay back all of that hypothetical sleep debt. So 10 plus hours a night for 3 to 5 weeks. Then you pick an arbitrary number like 9. So I get 9 hours of sleep. How do I feel after lunch? Feel fine. So the next night I get 8.5. How do I feel after lunch? Feel pretty good. The next night I'll get 8 hours of sleep. And then now how do I feel after lunch? Oh, I'm a little drowsy. I need 8.5. That's the only way of telling you actually how much you really need. I wish I had some cool way of telling you something like that didn't involve like weeks of paying back sleep debt, but it's just not the reality, okay? Athletes need a lot of sleep to perform their best. If you're younger, you need more sleep, okay? Once you hit about 25 years old, then your sleep requirements are locked in. Youth need more sleep, okay? I'm the guy that gets ticked when school started at like 6 in the morning, 7 in the morning, right? Athletes have practice at swimmers, 5:30, they're in the water at 5:30. I'm like, this is silly, come on, right? You know, it's the only time we can swim. What, water's only around at 5 a.m.? I didn't know this, right? It evaporates the rest of the day, right? We can schedule pool times outside of that, but Point being is, we need to make sure we get sleep if you're less than 24-year-olds, which is huge, okay? Bless you, by the way. Older people don't need as much sleep. No, not true. If you need 8 hours at 25, at 35, 45, 55, 65, 75, 85, 105, 115, however long you want to live, you need that same amount of sleep. Now, older people have more fragmented sleep, or sleep fragmentation, which means it's more disruptive, right? Which is why older people tend to nap more to make up for that, right? I live in Florida, which is home of the early bird special. That's why they go and have dinner at 4:30, right? Because they're tired and they go to sleep and they wake up at like 2 and 3 and 4 and, all those things. So, by the way, Florida is also called God's waiting room, I found out, by the way. I've only been there for a year, but, and you don't have to laugh at my jokes. I do them more for me. So if you happen to get them, it's great. Storing up sleep for the week ahead. You cannot store sleep, okay? It's like, I got a crazy week next week, or we're going to all this stuff. I'm going to sleep all this week and just hammer through it. You can't do that, okay? You cannot store sleep. If anything, you're paying back some sleep debt, which is a good thing. But even once the tank is full and you've paid back all that sleep debt, you can't add more to it. The tank is full, okay? Oh, last one. Alcohol helps you sleep. No, alcohol helps you pass out. Okay, there's a distinct difference between the two. Yes, you may be out and you may not remember a thing. You might wake up with one eyebrow, whatever it might be, right? The point is that when you consume too much alcohol, you skip over the regenerative stages of sleep. Now, there is a certain amount of alcohol that can help wind you down and help get a good night's rest. Now, what's going through everybody's head? How much? How much is that? How much is the alcohol? So typically, it's going to be different for everybody, right? Depends on how much alcohol dehydrogenase you have and how much you drink normally and those types of things. But at the end of the day, typically one drink is safe. Anything over that, you're going to start disrupting your sleep much more. And people are like, screw it, okay? It's conference. Anyway, again, stay calm after one bad night's rest, okay? And this is my sleep, not recently, but this was my sleep over a 7-day period. And you can see I got 8.8 hours on a Thursday, Friday 7.1, Saturday 6.8. Like, I didn't panic. I didn't freak out. It's 1-2 bad nights sleep, whatever. I paid it back the following night, 9.5, 9.3, 6.8, 8.3, right? So am I averaging around 49 hours over the week span, which is 7 hours a night on average, okay? That's what I'm going to try and shoot for. So I'm not going to panic if I have 1 or even 2 bad nights sleep. It's not a big deal. The point is, am I making sure I'm staying as consistent as possible so when I do experience the inconsistent times, if I'm traveling and those things, I handle that better. Because remember, the less sleep debt I have, I can handle jumping time zones better, I can handle staying up later better, I can handle less sleep better. If I go into jumping time zones and times of short sleep with a lot of sleep debt, I don't handle that well. And people don't handle that well. Okay? As promised, there is a sleep-nutrition interaction. How you eat can influence how you sleep, and how you sleep can influence what you eat. So when we become sleep-deprived, we actually alter our carbohydrate metabolism. It becomes impaired. So we do not metabolize carbohydrates as well as we do when we are well-rested, which is why when we are sleep-deprived, we don't recover from exercise as fast. We don't store glycogen as easy, which is also why we are cognitively impaired, because our brain runs on glucose primarily. Yes, I know it can run on ketones. I know. And it does a good job. I know. Okay? But at the end of the day, that's one of the reasons. That's the other reason why people who are sleep-deprived tend to crave carbohydrates. What types? The crappy kind, the junk foods, the kind that dissolve fast and can enter your bloodstream very fast. Okay? So it can influence how you eat. The other thing is, some people are more sensitive to food. Some people can have reflux. Some people don't, unpredictable hours, unpredictable times of eating, and then they eat really quick, and then now they can sleep. That can create issues. That's when you have to meet with your performance dietitian to help kind of develop some strategies to help along those things. Okay. So from a fatigue management standpoint, there are some sleep strategies. But the first thing you have to do with sleep strategies, you have to make sure you are asking the right questions. Okay? People love readiness questionnaires. People love training monitors. Most of these readiness questionnaires ask you a couple things. How long did you sleep? And how was your sleep quality? 2 things that we suck at doing. okay? You can't really tell me how much sleep you got last night because we don't know the exact time we fell asleep. So one of the cool things about sleep is it creates what's called retrograde amnesia, which is why you can't say, I fell asleep last night at 10:47. You don't know. You know what time you went in bed, but you can't tell me the exact time you fell asleep. And this is also why some people don't remember turning off the alarm clock or having a conversation, right, with their husband or wife, right, because of that retrograde amnesia. So we're not very good at that. Furthermore, if we are sleep deprived, we do a terrible job at reporting how much sleep we got and reporting a terrible job of how much sleep quality and everything else. So if you're using questionnaires in a sleep-deprived population, you just have to be aware there's probably more error there than you think, okay? Good news, there is a decent questionnaire on sleep and looking at athlete sleep behavior. This was done by Matt Driller, Sherry Ma, and Shauna Holson. Sherry was the woman who I told you about I met with when I first got into talking about sleep, okay? So what they realized is that the questionnaire that most people use, whether it's the Pittsburgh questionnaire or the Epworth questionnaire, may not necessarily be applicable to the athletic population, okay? So what they did was they developed their own, and this is a pretty good one here in terms of addressing this specific population here. So if you're interested, it's something worth looking into, okay? The other thing you need to know is, are the individuals with whom you're working a lark or an owl? Meaning, are you someone who's early to bed, early to rise? Or do you like to go to bed later and wake up later? Me, I'm an owl. My wife is a lark. Now I'm a lark, okay? Kind of how it works, right? When I go on the road, I go back into being an owl, okay? Now, you can adapt and you can become one or the other, but you have to be consistent. I'm not consistent. I'm consistent when I'm home. Last night, I went to bed like 3 hours later than I normally do, and I was loving every minute of it, right? Because I start to function better then, okay? So now I have to retrain myself. It takes about 14 days to convert yourself, so to speak, but you have to be consistent about it. You can't do one day and then not the other in one day. So knowing your population, whom you're working with, will help you understand how you're going to prescribe things, okay? If you're dealing with larks or if your groups are mostly owls, okay? Resolve daily dilemmas outside of the bedroom. That's important to do as well. Some people worry or think a lot. Identify those people and give them some strategies to avoid that. Bright light and melatonin levels, okay? When we're exposed to blue light that everybody talks about, okay, blue light's bad. Blue light is not bad. Blue light serves a purpose, okay? Its purpose is to suppress melatonin. Blue light's bad when you need melatonin levels to be higher, but not during the day, okay? So for instance, natural sunlight gives off a lot of blue light. Blue light is here in the 400 to 500 wavelength range, nanometers. We can't see it. We don't perceive it, but our body physiologically does perceive it and reacts to it, okay? Now, artificial light from digital devices also spikes with that blue light. That's why everybody tells you, get off your devices, get off your devices. You shouldn't be on your devices, right, at night. The problem is, what is the thing that everybody does before they go to sleep, right? They brush their teeth in this really bright room that emits probably a ton of blue light. So we can put the flux on our computers and put the night shift on, but I like wearing the glasses. Okay, because all of these high-efficiency LED lights give off high amounts of blue light. So this is why people who ditch their devices and turn off their TVs and like, Brandon, I've been reading books and I'm still have trouble falling asleep. What kind of lights do you use? Or what kind of lights do you have to use? So changing your environment can help. And you can see here that incandescent bulbs leave a little bit, but these cool white LEDs, these things peak. Okay, they're probably, halogen ones are fine, fluorescent ones are fine, even though I hate fluorescent lights, right? But from a blue light standpoint, okay? So blue light's good during the day because we don't want to fall asleep. We don't want melatonin levels to spike during the day, but we want them to happen at night. So not all glasses are the same. These are the Uvex Skyper glasses. They're like $9 on Amazon, right? These block out 99% of the blue light, okay? They are not fashion forward, okay? Unfortunately, the ones that are really cool and look good maybe block out 25, 50% of the blue light. So just know they're not blocking everything out, I'm not saying don't use them, but they're not all created equal. I went and got new glasses, I don't know, maybe about a year ago, and the lady was trying to upsell me on like this blue light filter. We can put the blue light coating on your glasses, and it'll just make it look wonderful, right? And I don't know why I have to use that voice when I have selling glasses, but for some reason I feel like it's important. And I'm like, well, what? So I play dumb. Like, so what does it do? Well, you see, it blocks out the blue light, which can cause molecular degeneration. I'm like, molecular? I said, don't you mean macular? Yeah, that too. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not buying anything from you, right? Craziest things. Anyway, just be aware. Some other strategies, you can plan around the biological clock here. You can see, so some people say, well, we should train in the morning because if you look at the morning time, testosterone is the highest, 9 a.m. Testosterone secretion is the highest, so we need to train. We can get strong at 9 a.m. The problem is cortisol levels are also spiked at that time typically. A net of 0, probably, so not ideal. Okay? Now, this isn't hold true to, not everybody is going to fit this model, but everybody's going to be pretty close, but it's just something that you could even follow and kind of get a better idea of things in terms of melatonin secretes, highest body temperature, and those things. Reasons why some people don't get enough sleep, I mentioned sleep disorders. That can be a problem. Insomnia, sleep apnea, scheduling, missions, training and meetings, long-distance travel, eating, commuting time off. There are lifestyle things, sleep, hygiene, alcohol, drugs, caffeine. These are the questions you have to ask. Right? What are your barriers of getting a good night's rest? Is it pain? If it's pain, then we need to get rid of the pain so you can get some sleep. Because if you like to sleep on your left side and your left shoulder is killing you and every time you roll over it wakes you up, that's a problem. You may want to get 8 hours of sleep. You might be able to even get 8 hours of sleep, but because of your shoulder pain, you can't sleep. That's a problem. Okay? Maybe it's noise. And noise, by the way, doesn't have to wake you up. It can be an imperceivable awakening, just enough to pull you out of your REM sleep and disturb you. So I had an athlete that used to come in every Wednesday morning groggy. He goes, I'm just tired on Wednesdays. I don't know why. Like, he goes, I go to bed at the same time. I wake up at the same time. I don't get it. I don't get it. So we put a wearable on him, a good wearable. We'll talk about those in a minute, okay? And I started looking at his data, and sure enough, he had these awakenings that he didn't realize he was having Tuesday nights. And it was right around the same time. Garbage truck going through his neighborhood. Just enough to pull him out of his sleep. He didn't realize it. Had trouble falling back asleep and was getting less sleep than he optimally needed. Didn't realize it. Just because of the garbage truck. We went to Target. He got a little white noise machine for like $25. Problem solved. Right? Things like that are easy fixes. So you have to ask the questions, or what are the barriers to someone get? Is it light? And let's set the things right. Is it noise? Right? If I have a light sleeper and is affected by like noise, I'm not going to put them in a hotel next to the elevator or ice machine. Right? I have my preferences set at every hotel I sleep at or stay at. So when I got here and checked in yesterday, I have the room at the far end of the hall because I don't want to be disturbed. Right? Simple fixes like that you can do. Establish a routine. Everything is based in routine. I don't care if it's 5 minutes. I don't care if it's 2 hours. But you need to develop a routine, whatever that is. Everybody is going to be different as well, okay? Whether it's turning off your screens, take a hot shower. This is an example, right? Maybe listen to relaxing music. Maybe stretch. Lay out your clothes for next day. Go to bed by a certain time. Read a book. Well, Brandon, I don't like reading books. Well, then don't read, right? These are just examples, right, of things you can do, okay? Point is, develop a routine. Everything we do with training and standard operating procedures is governed around routines. But yet we don't treat sleep the same way. And we can. It's just adding a little bit extra routine for a shorter part of the day. I'm not saying it has to be long or lengthy. Just pick some sort of routine and stick with it and develop it. Everybody's going to have something different, okay? Create a quiet and comfortable sleep environment. You want a dark room about 67 degrees. Well, I can't get my room 67 degrees. I'm deployed, okay? There are strategies that we can employ, and there are pieces of equipment that we can send you that can help cool your environment. We have strategies and countermeasures to counteract that. I talked about masking unwanted sounds with fans or other white noise. Earplugs are great. Bose makes these things called sleep buds. Maybe you guys have seen them. They're actually made to sleep with, so they're very form-fitting and they're comfortable, right? They don't bother you if you roll over, and they help block out noise. Now, you can listen to music. You can't listen to your own music. All you can do is listen to what's kind of native on, like, the Bose application, like, which is like, Babbling Brook or like whatever, Summer Storm or whatever you want to do, right? But so you can't listen to anything else. If you're not deployed, this is the time you need to pay back your sleep debt and focus on sleep hygiene and optimize nutrition for sleep recovery and regeneration. So you need to manage your time efficiently so you can be effective when you are away, okay? Because this is the time when you can only control what you can control, when you minimize sleep debt prior to travel. Because those are the times when you need to minimize sleep debt so you can handle travel better. So that bridge travel can be much more tolerable. Deploy your countermeasures. And depending on the situation, we would select certain countermeasures depending on the type of environment, which one would be going. Is it more arid? Is it more hot? Is it more cool? Is it more humid? Whatever it might be, okay? And then prioritize health and immunity for recovery and adaptation, okay? Now, I always get a lot of questions on supplementation and prescription drugs. ZMA, it was popular. It may still be popular. ZMA stands for zinc magnesium aspartate, okay? People report having crazy dreams when they take ZMA and helps them sleep. The magnesium part of the ZMA helps you sleep. The aspartate can actually counteract that and keep you awake at night. And everything that's done and people talk about sleep and ZMA, it's all anecdotal. There's no research out there supporting its effect on sleep and helping with sleep. It's all anecdotal, okay? But we do have the research on magnesium. And if you do want to take magnesium, magnesium glycinate or magnesium bisphosphate are the ones that you need to focus on, okay? So glycinate or bisphosphate. Melatonin, people love melatonin. Brandon, what do you think about melatonin? Okay, well, melatonin doesn't work in 100% of the population. Doesn't work for everybody. So half the room's out, okay? The recommended dosages for melatonin range between 0.2 milligrams to 5 milligrams. That's a big dosage. That's a big range. So you might be saying, well, why don't I just take 5? Because a side effect of taking too much melatonin, you can't sleep. That's a problem. So arbitrarily going to like GNC, okay, you go in there and just talk to the guy who's working there, okay, he's got his gallon of water and his chicken breast and broccoli in his lunchbox, and while he's talking to you, and he goes, here's the melatonin. It's just some arbitrary number. It might have 3 milligrams in it. But remember, these things aren't regulated. So maybe it has more, maybe it has less. Who knows, right? So point is, it may or may not work, but you might not need it. Usually there's something else going on, something else is rotten in Denmark that you need to address before you take that. Tart cherry juice, that actually works, okay? That can help trigger the sleep cycle. Most of the research was done with recovery on tart cherry juice, and then what happened is people were reporting, the researchers were noticing, people were saying, I'm sleeping better. Really? And like everybody. So they're like, well, let's start doing research on sleep and tart cherry juice. And sure enough, hey, it was working, okay? BioZ is a supplement. It's a protein supplement. It has lactoalbumin in it, okay? Supposed to help trigger the sleep cycle. Works pretty decently in the population. Power Off and Som Sleep. These are two supplements that, claim they help us sleep. The Som Sleep is everywhere, okay? I was giving a presentation to the NHL conference, right? And I think the chief marketing officer was in the back. And yeah, I didn't have nice things to say about it, but whatever, right? Same thing here. What do they have in there that helps you sleep? Melatonin. How much? I don't know, about 3 grams again, right? But again, it's not regulated. So maybe they put 5 grams in there because they know it's going to be made. It's got to ship to a warehouse and sit. And then it's going to be shipped to some store and sit in the back. And then it's going to sit on the shelf. Then you're going to buy it. It's going to sit in your cabinet, in your refrigerator. And then you're going to consume it. And then maybe there's 3 milligrams in there by the time you get to it. Who knows, right? Some people swear by it. But if they swear by it and there's maybe a placebo effect, good on you. Take it. I don't care. If it works for you, fine. In this population, N of 1 works for me, okay? Advil PM, Z-Quil, those things aren't meant to be long-term strategies to help you get sleep. They are just meant to kind of help you when you're sick. Ambien, depending on what type of Ambien, the length of prescription should only be for about 2 weeks, depending on the type of Ambien, Ambien CR. It's not meant to be a long-term strategy. These are meant to help you during a tough time, divorce, lost a job, severe injury, death in the family, whatever, right? And you just can't sleep, that's when these things should be prescribed, but not to be used whenever you want to help get a good night's sleep, okay? Sleep technologies. I'm trying to leave room for questions, so I'm moving a little bit faster than normal. So sleep technologies. People ask me about this, and I put this on Twitter, 2017. Simply because the technology is available doesn't make it accurate, okay? Therefore, one of the most important questions you must ask yourself is how much error are you willing to accept? These things on your wrist are not very accurate, okay? Let me put this in perspective. The Journal for the American Medical Association, or JAMA, did a study on the best wrist-worn heart rate devices. And the best one was the Apple Watch. Great. Let me tell you what best means. Best means that 95% of the differences were minus 27 and plus 29 beats per minute when compared to an ECG. That's the best, right? Not very good, okay? Because people are putting out the minimum viable product. What they do is say, okay, well, we're going to make the best heart rate monitor at the wrist. Okay, great. How much money do we need to spend research and development to do that? Well, what does the market currently have? They look at the market like, well, the best one's like 70% accurate. Well, then why are we going to spend millions of dollars to get to 95? Why don't we just get to 75 and say we're the best? Done. Right? And that's what they do. Okay? So those things have to be kept into play. Here are 4 comparisons. The Fatigue Science Ready Band, the Whoop Band, the Fitbit Charge, and the Oura Ring. Some of you may be wearing these right now. So you may be researching these right now, okay? I've done my due diligence on these and have looked at these and gone to headquarters and visited them and looked under the hood. Here's what we know. From a battery standpoint, the Fatigue Science Ready Band, 3 to 4 week battery life. That's pretty good if I only have to charge it like once a month. The Whoop Band, 1 to 2 days. About a 5-day battery for the Fitbit, 7-day battery for the Oura Ring, okay? Fatigue Science, 93% accurate to polysomnography. The other 3, they tend to underestimate sleep disruptions and overestimate total sleep time. The other thing to think about is any device that can tell you it can predict stages of sleep from the wrist or from the finger is full of crap, okay? It does not do it. It's a big leap. It's a big leap. It's accepting a lot of error. It's a difference if I want my body composition and I do a DEXA scan, or I just ask this guy to say, Jeremy, guess how fat I am. Right? That's the difference of error is what we're talking about, right? I'm 5%, right? Yeah. Thank you. See? Who's to say I'm not? Right? Yeah. My toe is 5%. That's about it. So, in other words, these are my recommendations. So the Fatigue Science Ready Band, okay, it's DoD technology, by the way. $37 million of research dollars went into that. 25 years of studies went into that, okay? And they compared to polysomnography at 93%. That is a good wearable device. That is the best one out there at this current moment. Whoop Band, everybody loves Whoop. Some people are probably wearing, I've seen people wearing Whoop in here. Everybody's probably putting it in their pocket right now. No, what are you talking about? Not me, right? Okay. Whoop is a great marketing company, right? If I want to hire a marketing person, I'm going to Whoop because they freaking kill it. They are not a good sleep company, okay? So the problem is it looks good, fair, right? It feels good, right? Their visualizations are beautiful. They're amazing, right? But it's telling me stages of sleep. It's not giving me good information. It's measuring heart rate, right, to give me HRV. And HRV isn't what we think HRV is, folks, okay? And we got some physiologists in the room who are probably nodding their heads right now saying, thank you, okay? So again, so we're getting bad data and it's driving decisions, okay? Fitbit, it's the same thing. It's consumer wearable. It shouldn't be for athletes, heavy industry, or tactical populations. Oura Ring, it's cool. Their first generation, not very good. This new one, it's better. There's some promise. The just validation studies aren't there yet. They just did one study. They did it at Stanford and compared it. It was a small study, which is concerning, not because it was just a small population, but because they didn't get a truly positive response. And typically in small N studies, you get a positive, favorable response, okay? So the Oura ring, what happens is it was missing awakenings by like 43%, okay? Which is problematic, but it's getting there. That's kind of why I have a half check, half not, okay? So anyway, it's kind of up in the air. But the other two, definitely not good. Yeah, no. No. So, we'll have some time for takeaways here. Sleep is important to every human being. There's absolutely no exception. Sleep impacts the physical, cognitive, social, and emotional domains, and sometimes really doesn't permit optimal sleep. But so strategies and countermeasures need to be deployed, okay? You have to sleep when you can. It all comes down to one thing, which is sleep hygiene, okay? Sleep hygiene is very much the same as dental hygiene. You didn't wake up this morning and say, you know what, I'm just going to brush my bottom teeth today. Maybe tomorrow I'll get my molars or lateral incisors on Wednesday or something like that. You don't do that, right? Why? Because there's a cost of doing business, right? You're going to have nasty breath, you're going to interact with people, but there's a problem with that, right? So it's a combination of the quality in which you brush, the quantity in which you brush, and the consistency in which you brush to give you the desired results. And that's what sleep hygiene is. It is the sleep quality married with the sleep quantity and married with that consistency. And that will give you the desired results, okay? Now, it should be noticed is that we all think we can function on poor night's sleep, right? Because we all are underslept probably in this room. But we think we can function, and that's called renorming, okay? It's like if you look at a picture of yourself from 10 years ago, it's like, I look young, right? But you renormed yourself by looking in the mirror every single day so you don't see those imperceivable changes in your aging process. And the same thing with sleep. If you get a little bit of sleep, less and less and less, you renorm yourself to that new function, and you think you're functioning fine, and you're really not, okay? So those are important things to consider. Some resources for you before I take questions. If you want to watch some good stuff, Jeff Iliff, One More Reason to Get a Good Night's Sleep. Jeff's a good friend of mine. We're on the Equinox Health Advisory Board together. He was on the research group that found the bathing of cerebral spinal fluid. Dude's like wicked smart, okay? Russell Foster, Why Did We Sleep? I enjoy that talk because he has a British accent, and you can tell me anything in a British accent and I'll believe you, right? I don't know why. And then Matt Walker's a new one, Sleep is Your Superpower, another great talk. For you, The Promise of Sleep by Dr. William Dement. That's the gentleman I was telling you about, the gentleman that discovered REM. Take a Nap, Change Your Life by Sarah Mednick, another great book. For your athletes and you, Ariana Huffington's The Sleep Revolution. If you have kids or are having kids or know people that are, Healthy Sleep Habits, Happy Child. Game changer, okay, speaking from experience. My wife put me in charge of sleep, of course, when we had kids. She's like, you're in charge of sleep. I'm like, okay, fine. And then Dr. Seuss's sleep book, that's just for fun. I just like the book. And then Who to Follow, Sherry Ma, the American Sleep Foundation, the American Academy of Sleep Medicine are also good things if you want to follow and find some more information. So with that said, John Steinbeck said it perfect, right? It is a common experience that the problem, difficult at night, is resolved in the morning after the committee of sleep has worked on it. We've been there, right? You're writing an email, it's 11:30, and you're like trying to fight through it, and you're like, screw it, I'm going to get up in the morning. You get up in the morning, you're like, what the hell was I writing? And then you finish it in like 2 minutes, and it was perfect, okay? So, what kind of questions do we have? Any? Yes, we've got a cube coming. She's going to...
Actually just toss it back there.
You can throw it if you want, but it has a microphone on it for the live stream group.
You ready?
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Thanks for the talk. Considering the population that we are dealing with,
Yep.
where often it's probably unrealistic to think that they will be getting even 7 hours of sleep consistently, what strategies should we look to employ with these populations in order, because oftentimes when we'll talk to them and we'll say, research says 7 to 9 hours of sleep, oftentimes they'll laugh at you because it's like, that's not my reality, man. So what strategies can we employ with them?
So great question. And it's important to know they have to learn the the real stuff, so when they have an opportunity to do it, they can do it. Hopefully they can do it, right? That's the important part of it. So when they are in these unpredictable and ever-changing environments, they can handle them better, right? So some of the strategies for down regulation, I'll be going on in the hands-on a little later on today. But again, a lot of it's identifying what the barriers are. Is it temperature? Is it pain? Is it light? Is it noise? Is it erratic schedules? And there are certain nutritional interventions we can do. There are certain countermeasures from a supplementation standpoint, from a environmental standpoint that we can do to help get them calm faster, to make sure that if they get 4 hours of sleep, it's a quality 4 hours. Because that's what we're shooting for in that scenario, right? If they only get 3 hours, how can it be the best 3 hours that they have? I don't want a disruptive 3 hours. I don't want a disruptive 4 hours. I want to optimize 3, 2, whatever sleep. So what are those things, those countermeasures? I'll talk about some in the hands-on that we deploy to kind of help down-regulate people to get them a better night's sleep. Yep. Toss the cube to someone, whoever, right in front of you.
Oh, there we go. Thanks. Hi. Hey, we have guys going swing shift, graveyard shift after an 8-month cycle. What was your ballpark figure again to adjust to different?
14 days, yeah.
14 days?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
So it's all with consistency with that, right? And what we know is if they go graveyard to swing or swing to graveyard.
They go days, swings, graves, but sometimes depending on tempo, they go right from one to the other.
So ideally, that should be flipped. You ideally want to go graveyard, swing, day.
Okay.
You want to work the other way.
Okay.
People tend to tolerate that a little bit better than go the way that you said. So that's something, that's a policy change that needs to be explored. But certainly, most people, and that was the issue with the Navy, right, is that there was no consistency. They couldn't even adapt to the different shifts that they had.
Right.
So it's a recipe for disaster. And sometimes just accepting that, remember, it's physical, social, emotional, and cognitive, and sometimes just putting people in a position where they can accept that they're not going to get good sleep is a better place, right, than them panicking that they're not getting sleep. And that's something important to say, is that these countermeasures will help make things better for you, so it's not as rough. So just accept the fact that you're not going to get optimal sleep. We'll deal with it when you get home. We'll deal with it when you can get acclimated, and then we'll go from there.
Copy that.
Yep.
Thanks.
Right behind you again.
So you showed the chart where in an 8-hour period you get most of your REM sleep later in the night,
Yeah.
or I guess early morning hours. Let's say you're waking up for one reason or another, go to the bathroom, feed a baby, something at 1 o'clock in the morning. Are you starting over?
No, you're not starting over, and depending on how tired you are, you can drop right back into REM, right? So you're not starting over, you're not starting fresh. Yeah, you would actually kind of hopefully drop in a little bit faster. People who are really, really sleep deprived, they'll drop in the REM like very quickly and skip over some of those other stages. That's not necessarily desirable either. Typically, if you can fall asleep within like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, that means you have some sleep debt, right? So if you fall asleep very fast, anything longer, like over 14, 20 minutes, something like that, that's a problem on the other end. Yep. Someone had one over here. Just toss the cube. It's the NSCA. Damn. That was awesome.
So I recently listened to a podcast that had Ben Greenfield in it.
Yeah. He loves Whoop.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Whatever.
Whomever his specialist was that day, it was about sleep and exercise. So one of the things he said was 3 hours before sleep, there should be no exercise. Do you have any thoughts on that, or
So I mean,
research?
there's a couple things with exercise and sleep, right? Now there's one thing. I'll get to your question second.
Yeah.
Okay. First one is some people believe that the more physical exertion you endure, the more sleep requirements you need. Okay. So like if you ran a marathon, you might need 10 hours. Right. Just made that number up. Okay. There's another side of the sleep population that believes your basal sleep requirements are your basal sleep requirements. So if you just need 8 hours, whether you run a marathon or not, you still need 8. You might spend different amounts of time in different stages of sleep, but, right, your sleep requirements are the same. Now, those people that believe you need more sleep as a result of it, it's only like 15 or 20 minutes more. It's not like this big appreciable difference. Now, the thing with exercise, you are creating a stimulus. You are creating a sympathetic state. right? It's a desirable one, right, because you're trying to exercise, which can create issues with down-regulating and falling asleep. But to say painting everybody with the same brush, I don't think that's fair to do. It's like, some people can eat like 2 Big Macs and fall asleep and have no problem. Somebody else eats like 1 French fry and they're up with esophageal reflux for 6 hours, right? So I think we have to be cautionary with kind of applying that to the whole population. But I think it's a safe number. It's like the 8-hour number. It's fine. It's like a safe number. But if you need to exercise to clear your mind, right, I think selecting the appropriate types of exercise can solve both problems, can allow you to get the exercise you need from a psychological standpoint, but yet not interfere with your sleep. You can do mobility exercises, stability exercises, soft tissue exercise, and those types of things, and that not disrupt it. I mean, you don't have to get under the bar and start, squatting the state of Rhode Island right before you go to bed. Yeah.
Good deal.
Other questions? Yes, up here.
Open over.
Yeah, you had a lot of pressure there because she nailed it.
What's the absolute minimum amount of sleep that you've seen somebody get and still able to perform optimally?
I can't answer that. So because one, we need to define perform optimally, right? And I mean, any type of, like I said, 1 bad night's of sleep, we can function on that probably if we don't have a lot of sleep debt, but there's so many other factors that come into play. We just don't, as humans, we don't perform well with little sleep, right? We're compromised to some degree. And I think the hard thing is sometimes we'll have a great performance anyway. It's like you hear about the athlete that goes out and gets hammered and all of a sudden they bat 1,000 for the day. It's like, okay, does that mean you can get drunk every night, right? And then go out and have a great day? No, it's not sustainable high performance. You just got lucky, right? So I don't think you can maintain sustainable high performance on low amounts of sleep like that for long periods of time. Now, granted that it could be the situation we're in, and that's what we have to deal with. So like in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, right? So we just have to function and deal with it, and that's kind of what training is about, is to say, even though I am sleep deprived, I still can get the job done. And there's something important about that, right? It's like surgeons that like spend 15 hours in one position removing part of a liver, right? But they, at the end of the day, they say, I'm one of 3 people in the world that can do that. And I'm going to get it done. Right? Now, I've talked to those people, and I've said, have you ever gone back and wondered, should I have not done that? And they said, yeah, I've been in surgery and said, this looks vascular, but I'm going to take it out anyway. And they do, right? And the patient's fine, right? But there's certainly people looking back at hindsight once they get well rested, they're like, ooh, I kind of lucked out. And I think that's what you'll see more than anything. So to answer your question, I cannot say what the minimum amount of sleep is for an individual to perform optimally. Yep. Anything else? Right across. Easy one. Oops, here, I get
That's
that.
all right, that's all right.
We're good.
So is it possible to have a cumulative effect over a 24-hour period? So if you're doing shift type work where you're only getting maybe 3 to 4 hours of sleep, and then 8 hours later you're getting 3 or 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah, that doesn't count as like 8 hours. Like there was a guy that was getting 4 hours of sleep at night and then taking a 4 hours of nap, and he's like, "Is that 8 hours?" No, does not count as 8 hours of sleep. That's kind of when you're starting over from a sleep standpoint, as she was mentioning, right? So you can't add up the amount of hours in a day. You're paying back your sleep debt, but you are not getting the same types of sleep in the same sleep stages. Yeah. Any other questions? Thoughts, comments? Okay, I'm here if you see. Oh, we got another one. No, go ahead. No. We're here. Yeah, I ain't going to throw it. I'll hit somebody. I'm sleep deprived.
2 questions. First one is, how do you get the light to not go on when you go to the bathroom at night at the hotel here?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so that's a separate discussion. If you were going to ask, if you were having a monitoring questionnaire in the morning and you want to keep the questions to a minimum, and this is actually Mike who's developing it, the last guy I talked to, is if you could ask one question on sleep, rather than how many hours, what quality, what would be the question that you would ask? And can you provide some references, because we have to have everything evidence-based in everything we do as part of the research process?
Yeah, so I mean, and that's the thing, I don't think we're going to be able to come up with a validated and reliable one-question answer, right? I mean, and something we can give you reference. That's why I directed you with Sherry's and Shauna's and Matt's survey, because they did a pretty good one, right? I mean, they whittled it down as much as you could, right? And that's the problem. When we start eliminating questions, then things start to get a little bit more, it becomes problematic. That's why, you know, everything validated is like 72 questions, right? It's like, so that can be problematic. So one question, it's tough. It's an amalgamation of a lot of things. I think mood is very important.
Well, if it's a group, so in this particular circumstance, it's always, so it's military, we work for the Canadian Forces, and these are people on course and very low level, so this is the Environmental Army course, and so they have no control of anything, and so we're having a morning and an AM and a PM questionnaire, and the AM questionnaire, Mike has been trying to get it down to a very short and sweet because you don't want to really impede any of the day. So because they're restricted and they have no control of the hours because they don't really have any control of anything, is a question like how restful was your sleep, understanding the parameters or the boundaries.
You
of
could
the
ask
question.
that, or you could live in the periphery and say, how's your mood? You could say, how's your pain? How's your tolerance to pain? Are you irritable? Like those types of things that we know, the lesser sleep we get, those things tend to move up, right? So you might be able to kind of look at some other trends and infer.
So if we have a fatigue, how's your fatigue, as well as how's your muscle soreness? So those are kind of the three questions. The one question related
Or you could put
to
a wearable
sleep-
on them, a decent one. Can't do that, okay?
Not anymore. No.
All right.
You sold me on it. It's not being any good.
Well, I mean, the fatigue science one's good. That's the only one I would recommend. And actually, because that's military technology, so that's kind of good. So it actually, the population which they studied is the population which you're dealing with. So, yeah. How are we doing time? We've got a couple minutes left. Any other questions? Okay, I'm here. Grab me. Talk to me. I'm sure you have questions. I appreciate your time. If we could do me a favor and push the chairs back to the edges, and then if we run out of chairs, we can stack the other ones over here if you could, because we had to kind of rearrange the room. So I appreciate your time, guys. Thank you.